Hare Krishna. So our visitors, you don't have to leave, you can stay for class. You can sit either outside or you can sit on the mats in here. You're very welcome. Oh, thank you, yes. Thank you very much, Sadhana. Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari Yasodhanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Srila Prabhupada. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakataya Asatar Sattahi Savanga Shila Isi Bhaktivedanta Swami Shila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Gaura Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Govardhana ki jai, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram Logiraj Shingadev ki jai, Shri Shri Gaunitai ki jai, Nitya Gaura Premanandi, Hari 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 Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna everyone, and welcome to this morning's class. So first of all, can I ask somebody to slide open both the doors for the benefit of the people sitting out there, because we have the PowerPoint presentation, so it's easier, not having to look through the glass, because the glass can give a reflection. Thank you very much. Okay. Right, so this morning we are reading from the 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, also known as the Bhagavat Purana. We are reading from chapter 14 entitled Pregnancy of Diti in the Evening, and we are up to text number 39. Okay, so here is our shloka for today. Okay. Please everyone repeat. Bhavisyatastava badrav abhadre jataradamo lokan sapalam strimschandi muhur akrandayishyata Bhavishyatastava badrav abhadre jataradamo lokan sapalam strimschandi muhur akrandayisyata. Somebody like, yeah? Abhadre jataradamo muhurakrandayishyata bhavishyatastava badra abhadre jataradamo lokan sapalam strimschandi muhurakrandayishyata. One of our ladies? You don't want to have a go? Chanil, you want to have a go? Okay. That's okay. Nobody does it perfectly, trust me. Jai. Bhavishyatastava badra abhadre jataradamo lokan sapalam strimschandi muhurakrandayishyata. Very nice, thank you. Okay, here we go. Word for word, please repeat. Bhavishyata will take birth. Tava, your. Abhadro, two contemptuous sons. Abhadre, O unlucky one. Jatara Adamo, born of a condemned womb. Lokan, all planets. Sapala, with their rulers. Trin, 3. Chandi, haughty one. Muhu, constantly. Akarandayishyataha, will cause lamentation. Okay, and here we have the translation. O haughty one, you will have 2 contemptuous sons born of your condemned womb. Unlucky woman, they will cause constant lamentation to all the 3 worlds. Translation, please repeat. O haughty one, you will have 2 contemptuous sons born of your condemned womb. Unlucky woman, they will cause constant lamentation to all the 3 worlds. Okay, so here we go. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Contemptuous sons are born of the condemned womb of their mother. In Bhagavad Gita 140, it is said, when there is deliberate negligence of the regulated principles of religious life, the women as a class become polluted, and as a result, there are unwanted children. This is especially true for boys. If the mother is not good, there cannot be good sons. The learned Kashyapa could foresee the character of the sons who would be born of the condemned womb of Diti. The womb was condemned because of the mother's being too sexually inclined and thus transgressing all the laws and injunctions of the scriptures. In a society where such women are predominant, one should not expect good children. Om Gyati Mirandasya Gnandana Shalakara Chakshur Unmalitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master opened my darkened eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Hare Krishna. So, straight away in the shloka, we have Kashyapa Muni not only describing his wife, but also addressing his own wife as haughty. Right? So let's have a look at what haughty means. You know, sometimes Srila Prabhupada uses words and that are, it benefits us to have a look at the actual meaning more closely. So haughty here, this is the dictionary meaning of haughty. Blatantly and disdainfully proud, having or showing an attitude of superiority and contempt for people or things perceived to be inferior. That's quite a heavy description there. Right? So straight out, in this particular shloka, we have Kashyapa Muni saying to his wife that she is afflicted with pride and these other characteristics, and we know that pride comes from the material quality of passion. Right? It's pride is discussed both within the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam as being specifically characteristic of Rajagun. And as we know, Rajagun is underpinned by selfish desires. So next we have Kashyapa Muni describing his wife as being unlucky. Right? Unlucky woman. And again, if we look more closely at the meaning of the word unlucky, at least in the English sense, unlucky means marked by adversity or failure, or likely to bring misfortune. Right? And this is exactly what happened in this particular pastime. There was great misfortune due to the actions of Diti. Right? Now, in a previous verse in this particular chapter, we also have Kashyapa Muni describing his wife as being afflicted. Right? He described her as afflicted one. And again, let's have a look at the exact meaning of the word afflicted. Right? Afflicted means at least according to the standard accepted English dictionary, it means to be grievously affected or troubled as by a disease, mentally or physically impaired. Right. So all of these descriptors. So we have Kashyapa Muni addressing his wife with these words, but we also have him describing her to herself. And so we can understand that Kashyapa Muni, he's very concerned about the behavior of his wife, but he's also concerned about the consequences of her behavior. He's also concerned for, shall we say, the universe at large, because these elevated sages, these munis, they were very, as Srila Prabhupada mentions in his purport, he calls him educated, I think was the word. He is educated. So these munis, like Kashyapa Muni, very elevated soul, very learned. So they are always concerned for the welfare of the universe. They're concerned for the welfare of all living beings. So not only that, actually Kashyapa Muni is now himself going to become the father of 2 contemptuous sons. So we can understand his concern. So, ordinarily, an elevated sage such as Kashyapa Muni, they would not need to address their wife, in this manner or about this particular type of calamity, because generally we can understand that an elevated soul, an elevated sage, they would ordinarily be married to women who are also equally elevated in terms of their character, right? In terms of their moral and religious kind of standing. So this is a bit of an unusual situation. We know that Diti is the daughter of Daksha, who's one of the Prajapatis, one of the progenitors of humankind. And Diti had 12 or 13 sisters. I think there was 13 in total. And I believe that at this point in time, in this pastime, all of Diti's sisters, so all of them were married by, like Kashyapa Muni was the husband of all of these sisters, and all of them already had children. Diti was the only one who didn't have any children. So we can understand that it would be very natural for Diti to also want children. Right? All her sisters had children, and naturally she would want children just because she was in a grihastha situation. But coming from this well-to-do background, right? So she is the daughter of Daksha, and we could expect that somebody coming from such a good background, family background, that they would be more adhering to religious and moral codes, shall we say. So anyway, what's happened has happened, and in today's verse, right, we could say Kashyapa Muni, in this verse, he's being very blunt. He's being very direct, and his words are quite harsh towards Diti. Like in most of the other verses in this particular chapter, we hear Kashyapa Muni speaking very compassionately and very understanding to Diti, but in this one, he's saying, right, here it is. This is what's going to happen. This is what you did, and this, and describing his wife as being unlucky and haughty, and so he's just giving it straight, as we can say. So now, in my last Srimad Bhagavatam class, for anyone who attended, I was discussing. I mentioned Vidur Mahatma from the Mahabharata, right? So Vidur Mahatma was famous for always speaking bitter truths, right? And of course, Vidur was none other than Lord Yamaraj, right? The demigod who is in control of souls that have acted sinfully at the time of death. So Yamaraj is very, very knowledgeable. He has to be very, very knowledgeable. He's a very advanced devotee of the Lord. But of course, Yamaraj was cursed, right, that he had to take birth as a Sudra, and so that incarnation is Vidura. Vidura's mother was a Sudra, but his father, of course, was none other than Srila Vyasadeva. But anyway, so in his time as Vidura in the Mahabharata, Vidura was the one who really understood what was happening in Hastinapur at that time. Right? There was so many, if any of you have studied the Mahabharata, there were so many calamities and tragedies and so much scheming and so much evil going on within the royal palace of Hastinapur. And, you know, by Krishna's arrangement, Vidura appears in the middle of all of that. All these elevated personalities like Bhishmadev and Dronacharya and Kripacharya, even Pandu Maharaj, he was Vidura's brother. And of course Krishna himself was also present at that time. He was the cousin of the Pandavas. So, you know, Vidura being at the center of that scene, Vidura took the role of being the prime minister of his elder brother Dhritarashtra, who was the father of Duryodhana. So because he was the prime minister, Vidura had this opportunity to always speak the truth. Right? He would always deliver the real description of what was going on. And throughout all of those years in the court of Dhritarashtra Maharaj, right, in the palace in Hastinapur, everyone was almost like, I wouldn't say frightened of Vidura, but they were like, oh, you know, what's Vidura going to say this time? Because he always confronted them with the truth about themselves and the truth about their family. Right? Sorry. So, you know, in a similar mood today, in today's particular shloka, Kashyapa Muni is here speaking the bitter truths to his wife Diti. Right? Not only is he informing her about the bitter truth about her sons, yeah, but he is also describing her to herself. Right? And the words are very blunt. Right? So I thought we'd just have a look at this thing in terms of speech, right? Because this particular shloka is a little bit outstanding in this whole chapter. Right, so we have this verse in the Bhagavad Gita in chapter 17, text 15. I thought we could read this one together in unison, right? It's the one up there in the top left-hand corner. Okay, are we ready? We'll all do it together. 1, 2, 3. Anudvega karam bhakyam satyam priya hitam chayat svajayaya vyasam chaiva vanmayam tapa uchate. Right? And the translation? Austerity of speech consists in speaking words that are truthful, pleasing, beneficial, and not agitating to others, and also in regularly reciting Vedic literature. Very interesting. So now in the purport to this particular verse, Srila Prabhupada, I won't read the whole purport, but Prabhupada says, you know, one should not speak in such a way as to agitate the minds of others. And then in the next sentence he says, of course, when a teacher speaks, he can speak the truth for the instruction of his students. Right? But still he is saying in his purport that one should talk, such talk should be very pleasurable to the ear. So where does this place us, you know, in terms of today's shloka and in terms of our pastimes, you know, in the Mahabharata, where we have Vidura Mahatma speaking words that are more or less jarring to everyone, but they were the absolute truth. Yeah. So we need to understand, right, the meaning of this particular shloka, right, 17:15. When Krishna is saying that speaking words that are truthful, pleasing, beneficial, and not agitating to others. So primarily, there are two different types of pleasing, or pleasure, what people experience as being pleasing or pleasurable. One is that which is based on the material senses, right, and material enjoyment, and the other is that which is based on the spiritual soul, spiritual self-realization. And these two types of pleasing or pleasure are very, very different, right? So the materialist will find pleasure and happiness in material exploitation. They are basically the materialist, people in the lower modes of material nature, they are exploiting the material energy. And they will indulge. That's their pleasure. And such people, they will become agitated when somebody is speaking words that are instructing them about spiritual matters. If they are very immersed in the material energy, because their own material conditioning is so different that they can't, they actually find it difficult to listen to or even perceive or understand those words. The spiritualist, on the other hand, the devotee, they will find pleasure and happiness in spiritual self-realization and in hearing, in listening to devotional topics. Now, devotees, they may become disturbed or agitated when they are confronted by words of a materialistic nature. They may, as devotees we understand, what's going on in the material world, but, say for example, if a devotee is walking down the street and chanting japa, and all of a sudden somebody, turns on the boom blaster and is playing Jimi Hendrix or, something horrible like that, or some very, horrible words, so the devotee will be like, no, I really, really don't want to hear that, right? So, when Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 17-15, when he's saying that we should not speak words that disturb or agitate others, we have to understand this principle, firstly, that different people are going to react differently to different phenomena in general, right? And that includes speech or words. And this, of course, leads us to our next shloka. So we got that up there, right? So maybe we can read this one in unison as well, the one on the right-hand side. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Yanisha sarva bhutanam tasyam jagarti samyami yasyam jagrati bhutani sanisha pashyato munehe. And the translation: what is night for all beings is the time of awakening for the self-controlled, and the time of awakening for all beings is night for the introspective sage. Right? So, Srila Prabhupada actually says that the material mode of goodness is more or less the opposite to the material mode of ignorance. Right? And we can find, if we study the gunas, we can find that some of the characteristics, yes, they are actually diametrically opposed. So, returning to our pastime in today's shloka, right? So, we can understand that although Kashyapa Muni's words to his wife, describing her the consequences. What were going to be the consequences of her actions, and also describing her character in one sense. These words, they were actually they were harsh, but they were truthful, and ultimately they would benefit Diti in her own self-realization about what she had done. Right, she had acted against the recommendations of the Shastras. Oh, excuse me, I lost my page. And as we will hear in the next few verses, Diti was actually submissive to her husband, when he was saying this to her, when he was speaking in this manner, these blunt words. She didn't actually become agitated. Because she could understand that, her husband is an elevated soul, and as the words that he was speaking to her, they were actually for her benefit. So Diti could understand that. Now, so again, looking at words in today's verse, right? Now we're going to look at, Kashyapa Muni is saying, you will have 2 contemptuous sons born of your condemned womb. Here we have another word, contemptuous. Contemptuous meaning manifesting feeling or expressing deep hatred or disapproval, feeling or showing contempt, right? And this is certainly an apt description of Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha. These 2 personalities, they became the foremost evil demons on the planet at that time. Well, actually within the whole universe, right? They caused so much disturbance to other living beings. They were so disrespectful to the Supreme Lord. And even the earth herself was suffering under their activities. So, when this sort of thing happens, then Krishna appears. And in this particular case, Krishna came as Lord Narasimhadev to destroy Hiranyakashipu and as Lord Varahadev to destroy Hiranyaksha. Here we have this verse. Okay. Shall we chant this one together? Okay, last one together. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Adharma vivavat Krishna pradushanti kulastriyaha Srishu dushta suvashneya jayate varnasankaraha. Right, and the translation? Arjuna said, when irreligion is prominent in the family, O Krishna, the women of the family become polluted, and from the degradation of womanhood, O descendant of Vishnu, comes unwanted progeny. Right. So this sort of incident that has happened, with Diti conceiving not 1 but 2 sons at a very inauspicious time, this is not something that we would ordinarily hear about happening in Satya Yuga. Right? So this occurred in Satya Yuga. We would also not expect to hear this of a woman who was married to a very elevated sage, right? A very learned sage, learned in the Shastras. So we can understand, right? We know the history of Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, right? We know that all of this is it is a part of preparing for Krishna's own pastimes, but nevertheless, we can also look at the various how can we say it? The various what's the word? Characteristics of these pastimes, to try and understand better what's going on. Excuse me 1 second, I lost my page here. So, right. So in Satya Yuga, right, we could say that most people, almost all of the people, were pious. They were spiritually focused. They were morally of good standing, right? And in Kali Yuga, right, we have almost the opposite happening. We have 90% of people being irreligious, thinking immorally, and basically not being interested in spiritual life at all, with only a very small number of people, like maybe 10% of people or even less than that, being serious about spiritual life, right? Really serious. I mean, even in today's world, there are a lot of people who they are part of some sort of religious system, but they don't really take spiritual life so seriously. So again, this is very unusual that we have this occurrence happening in Satya Yuga. And I'm going to read something I found. Here we have them, Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha. I found a very interesting purport of Srila Prabhupada on this very topic. Alright, so this is, didn't write down the verse. Srila Prabhupada is commenting like this. This is about the appearance of Hiranyakashipu. He is saying, since Vishnu is the central point of Brahminical culture, Hiranyakashipu's plan was to kill Vishnu. Right? For if Vishnu were killed, naturally the Brahminical culture would also be lost. With Brahminical culture lost, yajna would no longer be performed. And for want of yajna, the regular distribution of rainfall would cease. Yajna bhavati parajanya. Thus there would be disturbance all over the world, and naturally the demigods would be defeated. Right. So this was Hiranyakashipu's plan. Right? Srila Prabhupada goes on to say, because of the poisonous, right? So, because of the poisonous effects of Kali Yuga, right? The Shastra says, Dasyu prayeshu rajasu. The government will adopt the policies of dasyus or plunderers. Thus, there will be no instructions from the Brahmanas, and even if there are Brahminical instructions, there will be no Kshatriya rulers who can follow them. Hiranyakashipu planned to destroy the Brahminical culture and Kshatriya government and thus create chaos all over the world in Satya Yuga. Right? So, and although in Satya Yuga this plan was very difficult to execute, in Kali Yuga, which is full of Sudras and demons, the Brahminical culture is lost and can be revived only by the chanting of the Mahamantra. Right? So that's actually what was happening. You know, we had Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha trying to destroy the Brahminical culture within Satya Yuga. And as Prabhupada says, he says, in Satya Yuga, this plan, right, on behalf of Hiranyakashipu was very difficult to execute. Of course it would be, because in Satya Yuga everyone is, you know, they are not only interested in spiritual matters, but they are very dedicated in this way. So basically we had Hiranyakashipu trying to do, in Satya Yuga, trying to do what is happening now in Kali Yuga. Right? Now we have total decimation and dismantling of Brahminical culture. Now we know Srila Prabhupada says there really is no Brahminical culture in the world today. So, you know, for these reasons, yes, you know, Kashyapa Muni, being able to foresee these things, he is saying to his wife, unlucky woman, they will cause constant lamination to all of the three worlds. Yeah. So that's actually all I had prepared for today's class. We're a little early. Would somebody like to ask a question or make a comment? Perhaps we can have a bit of interacting. Yes, the microphone, please, to Prabhu.
Thanks for your class. So just you sort of touched on it, but in regards to deity particularly, it seems two ways to look at her situation. One, that Jai and Vijay, understanding Lord Vishnu's desire to engage in martial pastimes, they prayed that they could come down to the material world. So therefore it was arranged they'd be cursed by the four Kumaras. So by the arrangement of, I guess, you know, Lord Vishnu's desire, Yogamaya, she was impelled to engage in conception so that Jai and Vijay could take birth as demons. But on the other hand, Kashyapa is sort of condemning his wife because it would seem she had bad character and not using proper discrimination, demanded, union at an improper time. So
Yes.
I guess, is she really at fault? If
interesting.
if she's under influence of Yogamaya, is she really to blame? That would be the question.
It is a good question. Thank you, Manibandha Prabhu. Yeah, it is very interesting. And another situation that is somewhat similar, well, not identical, but in the Ramayana we have Kaikeyi, right? Kaikeyi, who was influenced by Mantara, her elderly maid, servant, to ban Lord Ram to the forest for 14 years and replace Ram with Bharat, as the new king. So this question also does come up in the Ramayana, whether Kaikeyi could be accused of, actually being of bad character, or whether it was all, the Supreme Lord's will, because Krishna wanted to finish off Ravan and Kumbhakarna, and therefore Ram had to go to the forest to enact that. So, I feel myself totally unworthy to actually respond to this question. But if I was to have a go to answering it, I would say that both are relevant, right? Both of these things, because we definitely know that. Well, okay, for a start, we have Srila Prabhupada saying that not a blade of grass moves without the will of the Supreme Lord. Right? But we also know at the same time that Krishna does not like to see his parts and parcels suffering in the material world. So, my understanding is that when Krishna prepares to come down, to this material realm, he can use anything or anyone in order to enact that for the benefit of all living beings. So our vision is limited to understanding good and bad within quite a restricted type of understanding. But Krishna is looking at the welfare of the whole universes. And in order to enact what he wants to enact, like for example, coming down to speak the Bhagavad Gita, coming down to annihilate all these demons, he will organize things, I suppose according to his desire. But we do need to understand that Krishna's actions, they do benefit. They are all beneficial. They are always with the welfare of living beings in mind. I'm not sure if I've actually responded to your. Would you like to comment further, Prabhu? Yeah.
Well, in regards to the Ramayana with Kaikeyi, it does mention that by the influence of the demigods, they inspired that mood into Kaikeyi.
That's true. Was it Saraswati? Was it? Who particularly influenced? I was trying to remember who it was.
The Devas inspired that mood. So that's But as you say, it could be both that. When Krishna wants to make an arrangement, he finds a suitable recipient.
Yeah, that's true.
But Kashyapa, by dint of his high Brahminical knowledge, he should have been able to understand. I understand you want children, but no, this is not the right time.
That's
but
true.
Prabhupada mentions in one of the purports that he also desired union. So therefore, he's not completely innocent.
That's true. I read that as well. Yeah, he's not totally blameless either, because as a very elevated Muni, he could have, or perhaps, on the material level of things, perhaps he should have prevented that. So, we also have another incident in the Mahabharata where Yagya and Upayagya, was it them? The two sages, they were approached by Dronacharya. Hang on, no, not Dronacharya. The father of Draupadi. Drupad Maharaj. Was it Drupad Maharaj? Yeah, he wanted a son to avenge his humiliation by Drona Maharaj. And first he went to one of these two sage brothers, and that brother said, what you are wanting is evil, but go to my brother, the other sage, I think Upayagya, Yagya and Upayagya, I think that was him. And he said, because my brother Upayagya cannot distinguish between pure and impure. So Dhruva Maharaj went to Upayagya and he said, okay, please help me to beget a son who can avenge me, to kill Dronacharya. And Upayagya said, yes, my brother thinks that I cannot distinguish between pure and impure, but he said, who am I to interfere with the Lord's plan? If a killer of Dronacharya is meant to be born, why should I stop that? So therefore, I will help you to get this son, and that son was of course Drishtadyumna. Yeah. So so these are interesting questions, and perhaps a little bit beyond our own perception, some of the finer points of these sorts of matters. Yeah. Would somebody else like to comment on this particular point, or if there's another question or another comment? Yeah?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I'm just looking at this picture and they look like twins.
Yes.
Are they?
Well, this is supposed to be Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha.
Yes.
Yeah, I got this image. It's actually a duplicated image, but this is actually a portrayal of Hiranyakashipu. It's painted by an artist. Yes.
Are they twins though?
They were born at the same time.
Yeah.
So they're twins.
Yeah, I think Hiranyakashipu is the eldest, and Hiranyaksha is the youngest, isn't it? Yeah.
And just a quick comment on the condemned womb.
Yes. Yeah. You want me to comment on the condemned womb? Well, again, very harsh words for a husband to speak to his wife. I think, using those words, condemned womb, my understanding is that Kashyapa Muni is referring to the situation being what it is, that the situation is actually condemned. Yeah. I don't really want to comment much more on that particular point. Do you have any insight into that, Sadhana? Yeah. It's, I feel it's the circumstances of the event that made him, describe her womb in that way, because her womb was going to be, developing these sons who would be the terror of the entire universe. Otherwise the womb is just, it's just a physical, part of the body. Beg your pardon? It's a what? A bowl. Bowl. Bowl, yes. So, would anyone else like to offer a comment? Manibandha Prabhu. Hang on, wait for the microphone. Yeah?
Govardhana samskara is there to purify the womb, so, and with the objective to get elevated jiva attracted to the womb.
Yeah.
So the opposite happened here.
That's true.
Due to inauspicious circumstances.
Yeah.
And I guess ultimately, Krishna's arrangement.
Yeah.
The inauspicious jivas were attracted.
Yeah, it's both. It appears to be both. It's actually an unusual pastime, in that way, in a number of ways. You've got this quite calamitous situation occurring within Satya Yuga, for a start, and you've got this irreligious and destructive behavior engaged in by very elevated personalities, Kashyapa Muni and one of his wives. So it is an unusual situation. Yeah, Krishna Bhavana, please comment.
Just to comment on how Prabhu was saying that it was very, like, she is an elevated personality, like he mentioned, wife of Kashyapa. knows all about Dharma and everything. At the same time, condemned womb gives birth to 2 demons. But at the same time, all of this is just to show an example, and then it pleases Krishna so much. So, like you said, devotees know above sattva gun what is good or bad. There's no good or bad. They like you said, the Uttamadhikari doesn't see any more good or bad.
Yeah.
They see everything as Krishna's plan.
Yeah.
And these people are so elevated, we can't even, they come down to help Krishna in his pastimes. So actually, and then just set an example. Yes, this is a good thing to do. This is not conducive, not conducive.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that's basically what it is. What's conducive to progressing, getting closer to Krishna. So that was one thing. The other thing I can't remember anymore.
That's all right. Well, your comment is interesting, and but because the Vedas and because Srila Prabhupada teaches on these topics, such as there are favorable behaviors. There is a favorable state of consciousness. Therefore, we learn. I think we learn to distinguish between good and bad. Within the devotional context, I feel as much as Srila Prabhupada is saying, okay, well, this is favorable, this is unfavorable. Like Srila Prabhupada, for example, has said, I have a number of quotes where he's saying, the mode of goodness can help in devotional life. Also, we have Lord Hamsa in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam saying that until one revives one's realization of the spiritual soul, one must develop those things within the mode of goodness. So the mode of goodness, as I've said before, I see the mode of goodness as being a favorable breeze. It certainly, it has all the elements that we might describe as sustainable. They are sustainable. Things like cleanliness and purity and greater knowledge, things that can help us along in devotional life, because at the end of the day, the Vedas are established to help the materially conditioned souls in their plight, and materially conditioned souls are suffering because they are still entangled in material life. So, we need to be able to navigate through the material energy. If the Vedas were simply to say, well, everything is transcendental, and therefore, there is no need to distinguish between material life and spiritual life, then we wouldn't really have any tools by which to get out of the material energy. But the way that Srila Prabhupada discusses, the difference between the material energy and the spiritual energy, and material life and spiritual life, I find that as being so extremely helpful. Sandy and Nick, good morning. Did you remember the other thing you were going to say? No? That's okay. All right, well, anyway, thank you everyone for coming this morning. Jai Srimad Bhagavatam, Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada, Ki Jai. Hare Krishna.